Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Happy Monday, Hayley.
Happy Monday, Micah.
It is the Monday Lunchtime Digest for June 30, 2025. And Hayley, do you know what today is?
Today is the last day to renew your license for this renewal period if you are an Oklahoma LPC or LADC.
That's right, or LMFT.
LMFTs are December 31st.
Not LMFTs. That's right. So keep it to have Hayley to keep us all straight on everything. So yes,
Don't
for
scare
Oklahoma.
LMFTs. Don't scare
No,
them,
so sorry,
Micah.
good. You're good. So for Oklahoma LPCs and LADCs, so if you haven't gotten all of your continuing education yet, you can still have access to our on-demand courses, all that are approved by the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health and the Oklahoma Board of Licensed Alcohol and Drug Counselors, and get those done today and turned in. And Hayley, I know you've gotten yours turned in, and I haven't turned mine in yet today. So I will be working on that this afternoon to turn that in. So I'm running a little bit late on that. And Hayley, who else is running a little bit late on stuff?
Who's that?
The Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. So
Oh.
they just released their 2024 drug threat assessment. And so it was released last week. It is based on 2023 data. And so some interesting things that were found in that. Now, you and I haven't talked about this beforehand, so you're getting this question cold, all right? Okay. So what substance was responsible for the most treatment admissions in between 2022 and 2023?
I'm going to guess fentanyl.
Marijuana.
Marijuana, really?
Marijuana for treatment admissions, yes. So for drug treatment admissions, marijuana was the most common one that people were admitted for. And so I know that we had at our Summer Super Summit just this year, we had marijuana abuse and addiction. And that's something that is really, we're starting to see more of with the higher THC levels and the access of cannabis now more than it's ever been before. And I remember a time, I would say probably about 10, 15 years ago, where you could not get somebody into treatment if marijuana was their only issue. And so now to see where it is the most common reason for admission, that was pretty wild to me whenever I saw that.
Right. So I went to a talk by Dr. Brian Cooey, who is the executive director of Arcadia Trails this last week. And he talked about emerging trends in substance abuse and narcotics use in Oklahoma. And something that he said was that, he had been working in addiction recovery for, well over a decade. He has served as clinical director of the Hazelden Betty Ford clinical department over in California before coming to be the executive director of Arcadia Trails. And he said that, 10 years ago, if you would have said somebody was being admitted for marijuana addiction, he would have laughed at you. But he said nowadays he's seeing such a huge increase in it. And he's actually seeing, people are becoming addicted to marijuana, and he credits a lot of the access and the potency. He talked about, if you look at a strain of marijuana, the average marijuana strain in 1984 was only 6% THC. And that now in 2025, it is it was 8% THC back in 1984. In 2025, it was 60% THC. And so just seeing that increase in potency, that's almost, 7.5 times the potency in the last 40 years. So it's no wonder, even if you are smoking, maybe a similar rate that you were in 1984, the potency nowadays is so much higher that we're seeing a greater effect. And so I feel like this is kind of the wild west of marijuana addiction treatment. Like, it's been in the DSM, the cannabis dependency, but now that the access is so much greater and the potency is so much greater all around, I'm really interested to see, scared to see too, what that effect that's going to have on the brain when we see these long-term studies start to come out in the next decade or so.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And just, anecdotally, I do the Smart Recovery meeting here in Edmond, and we have more people that are coming for marijuana addiction. Still primarily alcohol is the primary thing. And then we have a few opiate addiction here and there. But then probably the second most common is probably marijuana addiction, which is really interesting. Come to think of it. Yeah. So some of the other things that they found is that there was an increase by 12.06% in treatment admissions from 2022 to 2023. Um, they said that there was 1,375 fatal overdoses that occurred in 2023. Fentanyl overdoses increased by 20%. And then also where they're starting to see that xylazine, the vet tranquilizer, is starting to show up in Oklahoma, and that's has a higher risk for overdose with that, and naloxone will not reverse its effects. So that's something that's really concerning. And I think talking about Dr. Cooey, you had found out something about cocaine and xylazine in talking with him.
Yeah, so Dr. Cooey, so he did a presentation on, like I said, emerging trends in Oklahoma on drug use and narcotics use. And he said that so he went to a conference with the DEA earlier this year. And according to their report, there has not been cocaine found by the DEA since 2016 that has not been laced with either fentanyl or xylazine. And so what Dr. Cooey said is that, in the past, whenever we have any kind of narcotics that are cut with something, it happens here in the United States or, at the dealer or whatnot. But being that there has not been cocaine found in the United States that has not been cut with something since 2016, that is telling agents that the addition of xylazine or fentanyl is actually happening at the source. And so I think that's something for us to, keep in mind whenever we're informing clients about, the dangers, from a harm reduction perspective, of course, is that, hey, even if you might think that this is quote unquote pure or that this is uncut, it's very unlikely that that's the case because it just hasn't been found in the United States since then. So I felt like that was an incredibly jarring statistic to hear.
Yeah, that is very, very concerning. So we will post this report on our Facebook feed so people can have a chance to follow that link and follow that report. And Hayley, what else has been going on in the news?
So I have a couple of studies that go beyond Oklahoma. Micah, do you want the good news or the bad news first?
Oh man, give me the bad news first. I'm always a bad news first person.
I am too. That's why we work so well together, I think. So the first one comes from MIT. So this is a preliminary study conducted at MIT. So this one actually has not been peer reviewed or published yet, but the researchers believe that the information that they found was so dire that they didn't want to wait the 6 to 8 months for it to be peer reviewed before it's published. They went ahead and went public with their findings. So preliminary research by MIT found that regular use of ChatGPT may be having a negative effect on critical thinking skills. And so in this preliminary study, they looked at a cohort of 18 to 39-year-olds, and they assigned them to 3 different groups. They had them do a series of essays, so many essays over, I think it was about an 8-month period that they were looking at these folks. And they assigned them to either a group where they were using ChatGPT, one where they were using just a Google search, and one where they were using no internet aid at all. And so what they found was that those folks who used the ChatGPT, they had not only in their essay writing, but in generally looking at the brain, they had less activity in the areas of the brain responsible for executive control and attention management. They consistently underperformed when it came to writing without ChatGPT or reciting what they wrote. And they had significantly diminished neurolinguistic and behaviors when it came to writing. So not only were they not able to talk about what they wrote, but if they were given a prompt to write an essay without the use of ChatGPT, their essays were poor. They had a harder time actually formulating and writing the essays. And so they found that the group that did not use ChatGPT or did not use Google, they had higher levels of activity when it came to the creativity and memory parts of the brain, and that they were able to recall the information later. And so in looking at the brainwave differences between those who used ChatGPT and those who did not, because they didn't have a very significant differences between those who use Google and those who just recall the information without using any kind of aid. But in looking at the differences between those who use ChatGPT and those who didn't use Google or anything like that, they found that those who did not use Google or did not use ChatGPT had a significantly higher rates of alpha and theta brainwaves, which means they were engaging in deep learning. And so those who use ChatGPT to write their essays, so those who use ChatGPT to write their essays, like they still had to read through it, edit it, formulate it, and all that jazz.
Mhm.
But they had less activity in the areas of the brain that are responsible for deep learning. And so this is again preliminary research. A lot of the research for incorporating AI or using AI is very new because we really haven't been using AI. I mean, AI really hasn't been a tool that's been accessible to the public, but for the last, what 3 to 4 years or
Mhm.
so. And so I feel like we are in, again, kind of the wild west of using AI. Like, how much of this can we use as a tool versus how much of this is going to be detrimental to our health? And so the study doesn't mean that, oh, you shouldn't use ChatGPT, because I know I've talked about it before. I use ChatGPT to practice my language learning, or I'll use it for coming up with fun recipes or something. It's not that we shouldn't use it, but I think that it's just something for us to be mindful of, as we're incorporating ChatGPT into our daily life, or if our clients are relying on it, that we just need to be mindful of, the emerging research. Another piece of research that this study referenced is that those who regularly reported using ChatGPT also reported an increase in feeling lonely compared to those who don't use ChatGPT. And there
Mm.
might be a myriad of different reasons for that. It could be that, and I know for me, whenever I'm practicing my languages with ChatGPT, I'm not interacting with another person, and so it could be that maybe we're going to ChatGPT rather than our friends or our family for those questions or that advice or whatnot. There's a myriad of different reasons why that might be. And again, this is not to say that ChatGPT is bad. It's not to say that we shouldn't be using these things, but I think it's just something for us to be mindful of. And I'm very curious to see what the research says in even the next, year to 5 years. I think that we're going to have a lot greater understanding in the next few years, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, and I saw a little bit about this study in another place, and I remember whenever I read that, I thought, well, that makes sense because
Mm-hmm.
I use ChatGPT a fair amount. Don't ever put identifiable client information in ChatGPT because it doesn't have the HIPAA compliance and all this other stuff. So make sure to put that out there. But I use it a fair amount, of course, double check it and things like that. But it's less of a cognitive load using that to have it write out certain things. And then, as you said, you're just kind of double checking as opposed to having to generate it from scratch. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought, that's no different than a person who uses a bulldozer has less muscle strength than a person that uses a shovel. I mean, that makes sense to me. And I think that we are going to have to just, as we use it in our daily lives, we're going to have to make it a point that we are using our minds and other things, puzzles, writing in other areas, something like that, because it just like we don't use shovels, so we might go to the gym or something. It's the same type of thing. So I think your point that, yeah, we're just going to have to be aware of how it affects us, but it still will, I think, be very much a part of our day-to-day lives and in our work as it continues to evolve.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is there's been some research on, does AI make us, more productive? And the research overwhelmingly shows that those of us who use AI as part of our work are more productive, but we're also less motivated. And so I think to your point, if we are using AI as part of our work, we're relying on that to find other ways to strengthen those cognitive skills, whether it is the puzzles or if you're not putting so much cognitive energy into your work tasks, then maybe finding like using that cognitive energy into a hobby or something else that fulfills you, like still using that your brain, but just making sure that there's still an outlet for that. We're still strengthening that muscle. Just like you said, we go to the gym to get stronger because we don't have to do manual labor all of the time. And so the same thing, if we're using ChatGPT at work, we don't have to use that cognition there. Maybe finding another outlet outside of work. Um, yes, I'm still
Yeah.
motivated to work though, Micah. I promise.
Good. So that's the bad news. No,
that's
yeah. So give me the
that's the
good
bad
news.
news.
What's the good news?
So the good news, this one comes from Psychology Today. And so this one is also about the brain. So according to this article in Psychology Today, the researchers found that regular meditators are usually about 5.9 years younger when it comes to their brain age compared to those who do not meditate regularly. And so the brain age index is a way that scientists look at our brain and look at how does your brain perform compared to folks in your age group. And so if you have a lower brain age index, it does not necessarily mean that if you're 63 years old and you might have a brain age index of, 61 or like 54. It doesn't mean you've had a brain transplant or anything like that, but it just means that even though you're 63 years old, maybe your brain is performing as if you're 54 years old or something like that. And so, as we know, as we grow up, as we age, our brain decreases in matter. We have fewer neurotransmitters that are being generated, and so that makes us experience things like cognitive dulling. Maybe we are more forgetful. Maybe it's harder for us to concentrate. But what they found is that those folks who meditated regularly, they had increases in gray matter in areas of the brain associated with attention or emotional regulation and self-awareness. They had lower brain activity, what they call the default mode network, which this is something I wasn't familiar with until this study. But that's the part of the brain that is basically activated whenever somebody's ruminating about anxiety and depression. So regular meditators had lower activity there. And they also had increased telomere links. So telomeres are the protective caps on chromosomes. And so having reinforced telomere links, that helps to prevent cognitive decline from aging. And so those who meditated regularly had all of these strengths, had this increase in brain activity, increase in gray matter, increase in white matter. And they also found that those who meditated regularly had improved sleep and improved neural activity when we sleep. So whenever we sleep, what scientists are looking at is, how efficient is your brain? Is it being activated in these areas that encode information? Is it being activated in these areas that clean out dead cells or help to keep our brain healthy? And that those who regularly meditated had increased neural activity whenever we sleep, which indicates that their brain is more efficient at cleaning out the bad and encoding the good. And so regular meditation, it looks like research is suggesting, can be helpful in brain health.
Well, and I think that goes along with a lot of the other research that we found as far as just the helpfulness of meditation. And it's still surprising to me how many people, clients that come in and we ask them, do you do meditation? And they say no, or I've tried it once, it doesn't work for me, that type of thing. And so trying to teach people how to meditate, what it's like, because people have this unrealistic expectation that my mind should be completely calm whenever I meditate, and that's not it. I mean, sometimes it's very nice and relaxing, sometimes it's not, and it's just kind of accepting that moment for whatever it is. But this is, I think, a good segue, Hayley, to something new that we're doing here at Edmond Counseling and Professional Development, which is organizational trainings. And so we're doing organizational trainings, have a couple of different workshops. We have, one on the 8 dimensions of well-being that I know that you recently completed your certification in being a well-being coach. Is that right?
A wellness coach. Yes, a behavioral health wellness coach. Yes.
Yes. And so completed that. And so being able to go into organizations and teach people about wellness and how to develop that. Identifying burnout, managing stress, cultivating mindfulness and resilience, building and maintaining healthy relationships, dealing with difficult emotions, recognizing unconscious bias. And so these are what we're offering to other organizations. If it's a nonprofit, if it's a small, family-owned business or a single person-owned business or large corporations. And so if you want to know more about that, you can just go to edmondcounseling.com and you can find out more about our organizational trainings that we have developed, are developing, and are eager to come into your business or your organization and do trainings on this.
Absolutely. And like I said, I just received my behavioral health wellness coach certification with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. And so I am really eager to share that knowledge with everyone that I can. It was an incredible training, and I'm excited to see what we can do with that.
Yes, absolutely. And other things that we have going on at Edmond Counseling Professional Development is, of course, everyone knows about our Smart Recovery that we have going on. You can learn more about that at smartedmond.com. And then also our family and friends group, which is growing. And so that is for obviously family and friends of someone who is on the road to sobriety, or maybe they're not on the road to sobriety. Maybe they're dealing with addiction. And so it's to offer family and friends support, as well as an evidence-based curriculum on things that they can do to support their loved one in a helpful, loving way that, again, is evidence-based, that shows that it's more likely that these people will continue their sobriety or start a sobriety path with these types of interventions, as opposed to guilting and shaming and things like that, that people, just because of their own fears, sometimes find themselves doing with their loved ones. So again, you can find out more about SMART and more about family and friends at smartedmond.com.
Thank you, Micah.
Yeah. And then this Wednesday, we have our next Whimsical Wednesday coming up. So tell us about that, Hayley.
Yeah, so this month's Whimsical Wednesday will take place from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Flashback Retro Pub. And so that's over on Sheridan off of Film Row, if you haven't been there before. And so from what I understand, it is a $5 entry to get in and play unlimited games. And so it's free to join us, but it might be that $5 entry there to get in and play. But that being said, if you do come in and join us that night, we will be having an arcade tournament for free CEs. And so if you are the winner that night, you defeat Micah, if you defeat me, you're going to defeat me. I'm just putting that out there. I am not coordinated enough for arcade games. But if you defeat us and whoever else joins the tournament, then you can win free CEs. So again, that'll be this Wednesday, July 2nd, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Flashback Retro Pub. And if you have any questions and you'd like to ask us, send us an email, hello@edmondcounseling.com, or shoot us a text 405-440-3034. But no need to pre-register. You can just show up. We'll be there ready to play, in my case, and Micah, probably you win some games. Are you a final boss?
And what's the date on this again, Hayley? It's July 2nd?
Wednesday, July 2nd, yes.
Wednesday, July 2nd from
5:30 to 7.
From 5:30 to 7. And so we will be there. And, I challenge anybody to these video games. I mean, this is my era, Hayley. This is what I like. Do not put an Xbox controller in my hand. I won't really know what to do with that. But these things, I know what to do with them. And I challenge anyone to Galaga. I feel pretty confident in my Galaga skills. And so I am eager to show dominance at the next Whimsical Wednesday coming up this next Wednesday, coming up this week. And so hopefully we'll see you there. And it's just a time for us to, yes, we can network with each other, but also just a time to relax with other mental health professionals and be together in a very relaxing atmosphere, and win the possibility of winning continuing education. The last thing we want to talk about before we forget is our career assessment. So at Edmond Counseling and Professional Development, we have career assessments. And so if you have a client or maybe even a family member and they are over 18, maybe they're just starting off, trying to figure out what to do after high school, trying to figure out a college major, or if they should do a training program versus college, or even if it is someone who is in a career but looking at a career change, we offer these career assessments. And so it is based off of two different types of sessions. So it's based, one is a very narrative type approach. And so where, asking questions and exploring people's interests and things like that. And then one is a more standardized assessment. It's the strong interest inventory, which I don't know if people remember from their career assessment classes, but that is just the gold standard in career assessments, the strong interest inventory. So we have certification in that and provide that as part of our career assessment. So it is a way to give people more of a direction. It won't tell them you need to be a firefighter. It doesn't tell them exactly what they need to do, but instead gives them more of a direction, things to explore with several different types of careers and job titles, and then shows them a way that they can explore more of that on their own, but just to give people that general direction. So again, if you have a client or a family member that you feel like that would be helpful for, then you can reach out to us there at 405-440-3034 or hello@edmondcounseling.com, and we'd be happy to tell you more about that.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of exciting things going on at Edmond Counseling, Professional Development, and OCI. Even though our training season is quote unquote over for the year, there's still a lot of opportunities to connect with us, collaborate with us, or learn along with us. And so that being said, probably next week, we're going to be dropping at least the first few sessions of our fall and winter webinar series. And so we'll have some exciting topics, including things we can do to help our clients maintain before they go to inpatient, and what are some signs that we need to refer a client to higher levels of care. We'll have courses on DBT. We'll have courses on ethics, of course, and then also ethics when it comes to marriage and family therapy, as well as what to do if the couple we're working with has experienced infidelity. And so we have a lot of great training topics coming up for fall and winter. And so I know that a lot of folks are renewing today, but if you'd like to get a head start on next year's CEs, or if you are an LMFT or LCSW and renew in December, we'll have lots of great webinars coming up, and we'll have more information on that next week.
Yes, absolutely. And so fall and winter is our live webinar season. And so, as Hayley said, if you're a LCSW or LMFT or want to get a jump on your continuing education, then join us for our live webinars starting in the fall. And so, Hayley, do we have a winner for this week's drawing?
We do. We were liked and shared and commented multiple times by Oklahoma Mental Health Counseling Association, which I think is our dear friend Amy Huseman.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much for that. Oklahoma Mental Health Counseling Association. I know that they recently have stopped their relationship with the Oklahoma Counseling Association and is going out on their own. And I know that they are doing all types of exciting things now, and really appreciate them and thank them for liking and sharing our content. So congratulations to you guys. So Amy, if you want to reach out to Hayley at the information down there, and either take the CEs yourself or give it to your social media person or whoever that may be. But thank you so much for sharing the content. So, Hayley, what is our question for today?
So our question for today is, what are your plans for July 4th for Independence Day? That is this Friday, July 4th. And so, Micah, what are your plans for this Friday?
Plans for this Friday is spending time with family. So probably going to spend dinner with family over at my mother and father's house. They live pretty close to us. And maybe go see fireworks. We have a family friend that expressed some interest in that, so might do that, or might go eat and go home and go to bed early. So that is as exciting as it gets at the Perkins household these days. So Hayley, how about you? What's your plans?
So I think mine's about the same. We're going to go see some friends, our friend Jenwin and Cody and their little one Yudi. Let's go eat some good food with them, and then probably spend the night hugging Margaret, my dog, because she does not fare well with loud noises. So probably going to have my little cuddle bug next to me, but it's going to be a great night in the Twyman Brack household.
Good. So if you'd like to let us know what your plans are for the 4th of July, you can make the comment there or like or share this post, the Monday Lunchtime Digest. And every time that you do that, you have a chance to win free continuing education. So you might as well do that now, have a chance to win continuing education. And then, of course, you can start taking that, here in a few months if you want to take a little rest before you start doing that again. But we appreciate everyone's support and for OCI this year, and we're taking a little bit of break of continuing education, but are eager to start in the fall and winter and start doing our live webinar series.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for your support, and we hope you have a very happy and safe Independence Day weekend.
Absolutely. See everyone next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.